Ahoy hoy, I'm Planarwalk, and recently I was browsing YouTube and I came across this video called Science Has Disproved God Debunked by Ravi Zacharias. Might have butchered the name there, not sure exactly how it's pronounced. But anyway, this video was published by The Vigilant Christian and I just felt like it was wrong on multiple points. And so I decided I'm going to make a video on this because I want to explain why it's wrong.
By the way, the book that we co-authored, Jesus Among Secular Gods, it's worth the price of that book for Vince's chapter on science. When he wrote that and I read it, I just deeply moved by it. It's a very important thing for you to come get your hands around, because that fallacious assumption that science has disproved God is nothing more than a tendentious use of one particular discipline.
I wouldn't say that science has disproved God. However, that's not to say that science has found evidence of God either. You're making a claim that God exists. The burden of proof lies on you to prove that that claim exists, not on science to disprove that claim.
I was giving a lecture at Cornell, and a young student came up to me and she said, "I don't understand what you all are talking about." She said, "I live every waking moment as a scientist. I am a scientist. I live, drink, breathe science. You're asking us to move into metaphysics and philosophy. I don't understand that." I said, "Can I ask you a question?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Have you ever worked in a lab?" She said, "I did." I said, "What discipline of science gives you the imperative to give honest reports on your findings?"
You know, he's right. You don't have to be honest about your findings. But that brings me to a point. A few years ago, I went to this lab to try and produce kryptonite. Kryptonite is not naturally forming. And so what we did is we put this krypton into a chamber and we blasted it with ionizing radiation to get rid of electrons from the outer shells. Then we put ozone into that chamber and we run an electrical current through that chamber. And this actually produced kryptonite. And we were thrilled by the findings, so we published a paper on it, and we published it in a scientific journal, very reputable one, called Complete and Utter Bullshit That Just Came Out of My Ass. It's true. I just pulled that shit out of my ass. I didn't have to be honest about it. And that's my point. You don't have to be honest. People do lie. Now, if God existed and people were always truthful, you could make the claim that people are always truthful because God exists. But people aren't always truthful. That's my point.
I said, "Can you tell me what book in physics tells you that because of science you need to be honest?"
Okay, let's say that you lie. Let's say that you publish completely incorrect findings and someone comes along, tests them, and finds that your results were wrong and discredits you. And now you can't really do anything in the scientific community because no one trusts you. That's the reason why you should be honest.
I said, "You're already dealing with metaphysical realities. In fact, you're dealing with spiritual realities. The fact that you're called to be honest has very little to do with physics or chemistry or biology."
You know, I have to disagree. I'm pretty sure biology has something to do with it. You know, the way that morals are formed probably has something to do with both biology and society. So I'm pretty sure biology and society has something to do with it. Spirituality, I don't know where you got that from. I mean, do you cause damage to your soul every time you tell a lie? Well, fuck me, my soul must be crippled then. I've told many lies.
Said, "How would you ever like it if someday you find out that actually scientists had the cure for cancer, but they never ever decided to tell us because they wanted to continue to be scientists and not philosophers?"
In the past, there have been people that have come up with incorrect findings and knew that they were incorrect or something and published them. And then someone else came along, did the same experiments and found out that they were wrong. And then they published theirs. And other people came along and got the same results as the second person. And then they published theirs. And then there became enough evidence to say that the original one was wrong. That's how things go.
In other words, science can give you the means. It is going to be your values and your philosophy of life that will give you the ends to which you can use it. And that can only come from God Himself. And look at our world today. Take a look at what's happening in our world today. What discipline of naturalism is going to help us solve the problems if you cannot change the heart of a human being? And for that only God is big enough to do it. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Science and the worldviews have to go hand in hand. And the supreme worldview is the worldview that God gives to you and to me.
Do you have evidence that God gives everyone a supreme worldview? I don't think you do. And you said that science and the worldviews have to go hand in hand. Here is a problem with that. There's a lot of different worldviews, and you're trying to tell me that your worldview over everyone else's worldview is the correct worldview. That your worldview is better than the Islam worldview. Your worldview is better than the Hindu worldview. That's bullshit. Another thing you said is that only God can change the hearts of man, and you made it sound as though that's the only way that we're going to be able to fix all the problems in the world. And if that's true, then God better hurry up, because otherwise our world is fucked.
This is a question that I particularly love speaking to because there is such an assumption of that science has disproved God. We used to need God to explain rainbows and rain and these sorts of things, but now we have naturalistic explanations of these, and so we don't need God anymore. So much to say here, but I really don't think that could be further from the truth. When you start to look into it, actually, the two perhaps most significant scientific discoveries of the last century both point strongly to the existence of God. So first you have the fact that the universe has a beginning, that at one point it didn't exist and then at another point it did exist. What explains that change?
There are a number of reasons as to why the universe could have a beginning, you know? Just because you think it's God does not mean it's God. You're basically using the God of the gaps argument to try and prove your God exists, which is a bad way to try and prove that God exists. But a couple of reasons why the universe could have begun is because of some things like virtual particles that we've found. Another reason could be that the universe has just always existed, just in another state or form. There's people that have found that the universe could probably have existed in 4 different states of being, and that all those different states just cycle through one another. That could be another reason as to why the universe has a beginning. Or we could just go with, I don't know. That's a good enough answer. And it means that we've got to keep on searching for a reason. If you don't know, search for an answer. But don't assume that it's the first answer that you come across.
And what would the cause of that change have to be like? Well, it would have to be outside of space and time because it would have created space and time. And to create all of this, it would have to be highly powerful, highly intelligent, highly creative.
Not necessarily. You're jumping the gun a little bit here. Tell me one scientific article that says that the thing that created the universe had to be highly intelligent. That's generally a creationist claim, not a scientific claim.
And then a second scientific fact, this one really just forming around a consensus in the last 35 or 40 years, the fine-tuning of the universe. Scientists have come to a consensus, not just Christians, scientists in general, that the fundamental parameters of the universe needed to be finely tuned on a razor's edge in order for life to be possible. Not just life as we know it, not just life on the planet Earth, but any form of life anywhere in the universe. One Cambridge astronomer, he likens the chances of this happening just based on chance to a tornado blowing through a junkyard and just by chance producing a perfect Boeing 747 airplane.
Once again, there's a number of reasons why this could be. One that I like is multiverse theory. It could be that we just so happen to exist in a universe where the conditions are right for us. It could be that this is how things have to be. It could be that when a universe exists, this is just the parameters that need to be. You can't have it a different way. And again, it could be luck. Unlikely, yes, but still could be lucky. Just because you think that it's your God doesn't make it your God. Again, God of the gaps argument doesn't do very well.
Now, interestingly, I saw an interview with Richard Dawkins, and he said that it's an interesting hypothesis whether or not we have been seeded here by other intelligent life forms somewhere else in the universe or in a different universe. And I found that incredible for him to say that. To think that actually, even Richard Dawkins can see the marks of design in the universe. It's not actually that he's against intelligent design, he just has a specific bias against divine design.
Interesting hypothesis. But it's just that, isn't it? An interesting hypothesis. It hasn't been proven, so it's just a hypothesis. But even if it were true, yes, we would still have to work out where they came from. We're not just shifting it off to another thing. We admit that we'd still have to work out where that came from. You know, we can't just shift it off to our imaginary God and go, done.
And then just one final thought. The regularity of the universe. When we wake up tomorrow, we just assume that the universe is going to carry on in the regular, stable way that it always has. We never stop to ask why. Why is the strength of gravity going to be the same tomorrow that it is today? You might say to me, well, it's always been that way. But that's not an answer to the question. That's the question itself. Why has it always been that way? There are infinite number of ways it could be. And why are we so confident it will be that way tomorrow? I don't think that atheism has an answer to that question. But if you bring God into the equation, you do have an answer to that question.
This guy's right. Atheism can't tell you why gravity is the way that it is. But why should it? It's just a stance on whether a God exists or not. That's science. Science will tell you why gravity is the way that it is. And maybe it is a thing of, we don't know yet. It could be that. But to assume that your God made it the way that it is, that's just using the God of the gaps again. So that's basically the video in a nutshell. God of the gaps. Why do creationists use that argument so much? Why do they always go for God of the gaps? Maybe it's because they don't have any other good arguments for God. But anyway, that's it for this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you like that video. If there is another video that you want me to go ahead and watch and make a video on, leave a comment of it. I'll try and get round to it. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.